Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the damn sofa. That's the damn sofa and that's my damn sassy sidekick, Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane. My damn name's Paul. Welcome back to the sofa, everybody. I hope you all had an amazing holiday weekend. Now today we're going to be talking about a case about a love triangle that ended extremely tragically in the way that these so often do. Today we are going to be talking about a case that involves professional cyclist and a story, a narrative that we kind of see happen oftentimes in these triangles where not all points of the triangle know exactly what is going on.
Alert, the woman on the lam accused of killing world-class cyclist Mariah Wilson back on May 11th has been captured in Costa Rica. Caitlyn Armstrong has been on the run for 43 days. She was reportedly traveling with a fake passport and had undergone some sort of plastic surgery. Armstrong is accused of murdering Wilson in Austin, Texas. Wilson was fatally shot multiple times in the bathroom of her friend's home. Police say Wilson had been out with Armstrong's longtime boyfriend, Colin Strickland, earlier that night. Investigators have said evidence indicates Armstrong, now in custody, followed the pair for at least a portion of their outing. Wilson, who was 25 at the time, was one of America's off-road racing.
Now the way this video is going to go today is we're going to talk about the case, some of the latest updates and whatnot, and then we're going to go kind of rewind a little bit and go over the arrest warrant, the arrest affidavit I should say, because that gives us more of an in-depth, like behind the scenes look at how we arrived at the updates of today, if that makes sense. Once I read the arrest warrant or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, so that's what happened, allegedly. So that's what we're going to do for that. Now, always before we get started, I'd like to thank everybody, each and every one of you who makes the sofa possible. Y'all, it would not be here without you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Roscoe thanks you, and the damn sofa thanks you. We wouldn't be able to make the content or the amount of it without you, and I greatly appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, so let's start off by talking about the woman who lost her life tragically. That was Mariah Wilson, and she was only 25 years old, y'all, when her life was taken. Now, her family and the friends, those who know, speak very highly of her, and they did set up a GoFundMe. I want to just kind of read through that really quickly because it gives us an insight into, I think, a lot of the things that just really meant something to her as a person, as a human. So when it says May 11th, 2022, Mariah Wilson passed away in Austin, Texas, where she was preparing to compete in the Gravel Locos bike race. In her short time here, Mariah inspired many, lived fully, and loved fiercely. Now, in her memory, we are raising money to help fund community organizations that help youth find self-confidence, strength, and joy through biking, skiing, and other activities that Mariah was passionate about. With your generosity and most loving spirit, let's help as many youth as possible pursue their dreams. Thank you for your support, Eric, Karen, and Matt. And then they updated it saying, you know what, we hit our goal. We're gonna, do it a little bit above, and all these proceeds are gonna be going to this organization and fundraiser that they are doing to help inspire and help other people reach these goals through these kind of activities. You can clearly see that this was very close to her heart, something she was very passionate about. Now, she also kept a journal and like an online diary, if you will, that kept track of all of her stuff. She, from what I can gather, was like a very up and coming, like she was like, in that world, I guess, like a celebrity, a star, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure how that terminology works for that. But let's take a look very quickly at her journal real quick, just so you can kind of get a vibe of it. Now, one thing I noticed with her journal, scrolling through it, is that she was an excellent writer. She was very passionate about the sport, about her life, and just about being a transparent human being, about the part about being human, I guess. And that really stuck out to me about her as a person, and I think that goes hand in hand with this fundraiser that the family are doing, right? I think that speaks to that. So that being said, don't we always see this in these cases where the person who's losing their life is usually this really wonderful, amazing person, right? And then the person taking their life is not so much, and we'll be getting to her in just a minute. Now, the man in this triangle, his name is Colin Strickland. He's in Austin, Texas, and he is affiliated with Red Bull. They're like one of his sponsors. He too is like a very, popular, famous in this world kind of cyclist person. And like I said, he was the male in the triangle. And one reason I want to go over the arrest affidavit is because when you're reading it, it's like, oh, jealous girlfriend, da-da-da-da-da. But once I read the arrest thing, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, he wasn't being really on the up and up with everybody in this situation, right? And I'm not trying to really sit here and necessarily blame him for what happened, but there's a lot of where I was like, oh, okay, so this is, not everybody was being informed of what was going on. It does not justify what Caitlyn Armstrong did at all, okay? Now, before we talk about Caitlyn, though, let's look at a little bit of who Colin is. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at his Red Bull page. That's his sponsor, like I said. We can learn a lot about him by just looking on that. So let's go ahead and do that for a second. So as we can see, it says, he's becoming a leading light in the gravel racing. He was born in 1986. He's 35. He is born in Johnson City, Texas. And it says Colin Strickland took a long and uncommon route to becoming a professional cyclist. Launching his pro career in his late 20s, now at the height of his ability, he's rewritten the record books in criterium racing and is dominant force in the fastest growing discipline of gravel. He grew up on a farm outside Austin, Texas. The first time I got on a bike, there was no tarmac in sight. It was just 2 miles on gravel to the highway, he remembers. Now, this goes on talking about, his achievements, his accomplishments, things of this nature. So, like it says, Colin is an up-and-coming name. He has made a name for himself in this world, and so this is who he is. Now, what I want to do now is move on to more of the nuts and bolts of the story, which are going to involve the person also at another part of this triangle, the alleged murderess of this, who is Caitlyn Armstrong. Now, Caitlyn is 34 years old at the time of this recording. She's a yoga instructor. She's real big into that, it sounds like. And so when all this went down, let's just kind of talk about the most update. So the update is, number one, she's been captured, right? She is in custody. We'll talk about what her bail is, that kind of thing in a second. Now, pardon me, she has allegedly, like I said, took the life of Mo Wilson. This is over Colin, right? Now, she went on this 43-day international manhunt. I mean, y'all, this is like next level. This is like movie stuff, right? Okay, so she is accused of taking her life in Austin on May 11th after Wilson spent the day with Armstrong's boyfriend, Colin Strickland. Okay, so they apparently had a little romantic fling. So apparently at a certain point, Caitlyn and Colin broke up for a couple of weeks, right? And during this time, Colin fired up this relationship, this, little affair, whatever you want to call it, with Mo. But then he ultimately ended up getting back with Caitlyn. Well, apparently he didn't cut it off, and you'll see, we'll go over the evidence of this that he freely admits to, right? And so he was kind of covering up this little relationship. And so Caitlyn was not having that, apparently. So this is kind of like what spurs the theory of the jealousy and all that kind of stuff. Now, Anna had come into town. She was preparing for a race, and kind of behind Caitlyn's back, he went and saw her, right? But he thought it was behind her back, but she was lurking, okay? Now, after all this went down, all this kind of stuff, the cops interview Caitlyn, and we'll talk about some of this evidence and whatnot. And basically, she was let go without charges, but there's definitely red flags up, right? And this is when she was like, see ya. So after she was questioned, she sold her Jeep Grand Cherokee that was spotted on their surveillance footage outside of the crime scene. She took the 12 grand from the sale, she got on a flight to New York, and then days later she used somebody else's passport to fly out of New Jersey to Costa Rica. Now, she was arrested in a hostel, in Santa Teresa Beach Wednesday. Her hair was dyed darker, cut shoulder length, the U.S. Marshal said. Now, also, and this is alleged, all this kind of stuff, but she had bandages on her noses and bruises, she had a bandage on her nose and bruises under her eyes, and a witness said that they found a receipt for cosmetic surgery or something like that when she was taken away. So she was actively working on changing her appearance. Now, she has been transferred to Austin. She's going to face, charges against what she allegedly did to Mo, and her bail has been set at $3.5 million, and she'll be subject to GPS monitoring if she's even able to post that. Okay, so all that being said, now we're going to get into the real damn tea of the situation, okay? Because when I read this, I was like, oh my God, this is like, these are usually really good, right? And I hate to say that, but this is just where you get to the juice of it. And when I say the juice of it, where you're like, what really happened? Because I was just like, oh my God, this like paints a whole different picture of this. Because you just almost see this coming down the pipeline, right? I was like, anyways. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to put some things up on the screen as I read through this. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going to stop, make commentary. The links are down below if you just want to read through this whole thing without listening to me read it to you and talk to you about it and whatnot. So there's that. Now, I will not read it completely in depth. If we get to like the little boring part where the cop's like, during the interview I was wearing this and da-da-da, we're not going to do all that, okay? We're just going to get to the juicy parts, okay? So there's that. Okay. Now, and when I mean juicy parts, I don't mean to relate it down to like saying that sounds bad, but just, you know what I'm saying, like the parts that matter, okay? So there's that. So on May 11th, 2022, at approximately 9:56 p.m., APD officer Martin Salinas responded to a Czech welfare urgent call at an address in Austin, Travis County, Texas. Officer Salinas arrived on the scene and located the caller, later identified as a lady. We'll just call her a lady. Inside of the residence performing CPR on a female subject, later identified as Anna Wilson. Officers on scene reported Wilson had multiple defects on her body that had the appearance of gunshot wounds. Officers observed multiple fire cartridge cases on the floor near Wilson, but a firearm was not immediately observed. Wilson was pronounced deceased at 10:10 by Dr. Escott. Okay, so now first of all, when I read this, I had no idea that this happened at the friend's house, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is just terrible. And again, this is what we see so often in these cases where these monsters victimize so many people, because not only did she take the life of this wonderful, beautiful human being, she did in this woman's house, right? This is what this woman comes home to. Her friend brutally, unalived in her home. It's just sick. Okay, so anyways, let's keep going. So the friend stated the descendant was her friend, who was a professional cyclist and visiting from San Francisco. The friend advised she picked up Wilson from the airport on May 10th, 2022, and Wilson had come to Austin for a bicycle race the coming weekend in Hico, Texas. On May 11th, 2022, the friend stated she had received a text message from Wilson stating Wilson was going to meet up with a friend named Colin to go swimming. The friend stated she was at a nearby residence and went home to speak with Wilson about her going out with Colin. The friend advised she left her residence around 5:30 p.m. to meet with some of her friends and have dinner. As she left, she observed Wilson's large bicycle travel bag sitting next to the front door on the elevated porch. The friend advised she went back inside and told Wilson to take the bag inside of the house before she leaves so no one steals it. The friend advised after eating with her friends she returned to the residence and observed the large bicycle travel bag at the bottom of the stairs partially blocking the carport. The friend advised she went inside of her residence approximately 2 minutes before she called 911 and noticed the front door to the residence was unlocked. The friend stated Wilson was observed lying on the bathroom floor covered in blood and no one else was inside. The friend advised Wilson's specialized S-Works bicycle appeared to be stolen, but nothing else inside was missing. Officers checked the area and located Wilson's bicycle approximately 68 feet south of the friend's residence, concealed in thick bamboo. Okay, so let's just stop here. So first of all, when I read this part, I was like, this poor the whole unfortunate situation, because immediately I'm sure what this person was thinking is, oh my gosh, the house was robbed, like the bike, like, because that's what she was like, say, hey, move the bike so it doesn't, get stolen. And here it is, the bike's missing, all this stuff. But also what it tells us is look at how cunning, allegedly, right, that Armstrong was in this, like making it look like a robbery, right? So, I mean, she was covering her tracks. Now, obviously, she wasn't that smart about it because we already saw the evidence of her. She just drove her car right up there and did it, right? I mean, how stupid are you? I mean, this day and age, I mean, come on. So the friend identified Colin Strickland as the subject who Wilson was going to swim with. The friend further advised Strickland lives in Austin area and is a professional cyclist sponsored by Red Bull. APD detectives were able to locate multiple photos from online open source media containing a subject named Colin Strickland, who appeared to be a professional bicycle racer sponsored by Red Bull. The subject was fully identified as Colin Strickland, a white female born November 17, 1986. Strickland's issued Texas driver's license showed an address in Austin, Travis County, Texas. The friend spoke with Detective Spittler and explained she has an electronic lock on the door to her residence that is unlocked by using a unique code. Now, the next section just describes how this friend has a unique code for the front door and how she gave her, Mo this unique code to do this, so they're able to kind of pinpoint time-wise with that. I'm not going to read this section because I don't want to bore you with it because it's just kind of little details like that, but that's essentially what it's going into. The main takeaways from it are this line right here. So it says that the friend showed the notification she received from the electronic lock to Detective Spittler, who observed the friend received a notification at 5:55 p.m. showing the door was locked, indicating Wilson left to go swimming. The next notification the friend received was at 8:36 p.m. showing the unique code Wilson was provided by the friend was used to unlock the door, indicating that Wilson had returned. Now, this next section I'm going to put up, it's talking about the detective going and getting cameras from the other neighbors. I'm going to read the most important part out of this. So he sees a surveillance camera that's mounted on the exterior of a residence directly north of the friend's residence, and he goes to the homeowners. They let him review it, and he says that in the video, Detective Ramirez observed a dark colored SUV drive past the residence with the surveillance cameras at 8:37 p.m., 1 minute after Wilson entered the friend's residence, according to the locking mechanism. The dark colored SUV then slowed down, appearing to come to a stop directly next to the friend's residence. The SUV appeared to have a large bicycle rack mounted on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, a luggage rack mounted on the roof, and what appeared to be chrome around the windows. No other vehicles were observed on the video surveillance passing by until marked emergency vehicles arrived. Now again, I've already said it once, I'll say it again. In this day and age, what idiot drives their car? So recognizable, right? Thank God she did it though. To the crime scene to do this. I mean, literally 1 minute after she checks in there. I mean, this is the thing that people don't think about. And this clearly is somebody who just, and again, this is all alleged, let their emotions get the best of them, right? Because this is not somebody thinking clearly, or sanely at all. Like, this is obviously issues, right? Anyways, let's keep going. So then on May 12th, 2022, officers assigned to the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force drove to the address listed on Strickland's, that's Colin, his driver's license, and they see the 2012 Jeep Cherokees bearing the Texas license plate. It's the same one that they saw in the video. It has a large bicycle rack mounted on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, has a luggage rack mounted on the roof, and the chrome around the windows. For all intents and purposes, this is the vehicle from the footage. So then two detectives respond to Strickland's listed address, and they speak with Strickland. Upon arriving, they see three vehicles on the driveway. The vehicles are identified as what we see: a BMW motorcycle, a Mercedes, and then a Jeep Grand Cherokee, the one that we've seen. So Strickland voluntarily agreed to drive to the Austin Police Headquarters, and he goes in for a formal interview. And before the interview begins, they tell him he's free to leave, all this kind of stuff. Okay, now here's where we're going to get into the backstory, and this is where it's like, oh, what? Okay, so Strickland advised he currently lives with his girlfriend Caitlyn Armstrong, a white female born on November 21st, 1987. Strickland stated they had been dating for approximately 3 years, but briefly ended their relationship for 1 to 2 weeks in October 2021. During Armstrong and Strickland's breakup, he met the victim, Wilson. Wilson and Strickland then had a romantic relationship before Strickland ultimately began dating Armstrong again. Strickland advised while he and Wilson were dating, Armstrong called Wilson on the phone, telling Wilson she was the one who was dating Strickland. Strickland told Detective Spittler he has had to change Wilson's name in his phone, so Armstrong does not know who he is speaking to as they continue their relationship. Strickland admitted he had to change Wilson's name in his phone because Armstrong had blocked Wilson's number in Strickland's phone. Strickland also advised he has had to delete text messages on his phone to prevent Armstrong from finding them. Okay, hold up. Okay, this right here, okay, and right now I'm literally drawing a blank. Y'all drop in the comments. You already know who I'm talking about. I did a story on it. It's the one that interviewed the cop. I want to say her name is Sherry, but I keep thinking Sherry Papini, but that's the recent case. Y'all know the one I'm talking about with the crazy facial contortions. They got away with it for so long. I'll think of it after I'm done recording. Anyways, this is giving that energy, right? This right here is like, oh my God. So this is the first things when I hear this, I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, first of all, and here's my thing. And again, I'm not blaming anybody except the person who is responsible for, allegedly doing the crime, right? But when I sit here and look at these scenarios, and if you've been like cheated on before or had this done to you, this is where I'm always like, you know what? Like, man up and just do what you want to do. Because my take on it is this, and this is just me on the sofa, right? I don't know these people, but it's like, okay, so y'all broke up for a couple of weeks, you get back together, you have this fling with Mo, then you get back with her. Okay, so during this, number one, Armstrong over here, the one who allegedly did the killing, she's going out of her way to contact this woman and say, he's my man, you need to leave him alone, red flags all over the place with that for both of them, right? Because with him, I'm like, why are you still talking to her? Why are you dragging her into this? Is she informed of all of this? You know what I'm saying? Like, does she know what you're signing her up for? Well, apparently so, when his girlfriend is calling her. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's all that going on. So if he's having to, I'm having to change her name and do this, and she's blocked this and she's blocked that. That's toxic, right? And it's like, pick a side of the fence, dude. What do you want? You want to? Well, clearly he wants to have his cake and eat it too. That's my interpretation. And that kind of stuff just pisses me off, to be honest. Because I'm just like, because this is what happens. This is what happens. Like, this is the kind of stuff that ends up going down is someone loses their life because people, especially in this day and age, people are crazy. People are crazy out there. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's like, I don't know all the ins and outs, obviously. I wasn't these people. But, we see this so often in these true crime stories where it's like, somebody doesn't end. They're stringing this one along and doing this and doing that. And one of them's unbalanced. And this one's that. And, and it's just like, what? Anyways, I'm done with my rant. Let's keep going. So where we left off at is, he had to change all the phone numbers and all that type stuff. So Strickland advised he picked up Wilson on his motorcycle on the day of the murder, May 11th, at approximately 5:45 p.m. from the person's residence, and they went to the City of Austin Deep Eddy Pool, located at 401 Deep Eddy Avenue, Austin, Travis, Texas. Strickland stated after swimming, he and Wilson walked to Pool Burger, located at, in Austin, Texas. Strickland advised after they ate, he drove Wilson back to the residence on his motorcycle and dropped her off. Strickland advised as he arrived, he did not observe anybody nearby, and he noted the garage door to the garage located underneath the residence was closed. Strickland advised he did not go inside the residence and left promptly after dropping off Wilson. Strickland advised he drove his motorcycle northbound through an alleyway until East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Strickland advised he stopped his motorcycle and sent a text message from his phone to Armstrong at 8:36 p.m. This text message stated the following: "Hey, are you out? I went to drop some flowers for Allison at her son's house up north and my phone died. Headed home unless you have another food suggestion." Strickland had lied about his whereabouts to Armstrong to hide he was with Wilson throughout the evening. Okay, hold up. We got to stop again. You're done. Okay, that right there, I'm like, really? But this is what I'm talking about. This is not a friend. This is someone you are hiding actively from your partner that you are in a relationship with. All the parts of the triangle don't know what's going on, except for the clearly unbalanced one that is willing to take it to this level that she allegedly has, right? Because here's the thing, she clearly was out following them, right? Because she was right around the damn corner. 1 minute later, she's driving past. You know what I'm saying? So he's sitting here doing that. You know that text message. Woo! I mean, that sent her over the damn edge. She was like, oh, you're done. Okay, that one sent her over the edge. Strickland advised he rode his motorcycle home and arrived at approximately 8:43. He advised he sent another text message to Armstrong around this time and recalled being nearby his residence when he sent it. Strickland went into the garage and began working on his bicycles to prepare for an upcoming race. While in the garage, Strickland sent another text message to Armstrong at 9:21 p.m. Strickland advised not long after that he sent that message. Armstrong arrived at the residence driving the 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee with a large bicycle rack mounted on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, a luggage rack in the chrome, and all that type of stuff. She was the only person inside the vehicle. So throughout the interview, Strickland spoke very highly of Wilson and her accomplishments. Strickland advised Wilson was a professional cyclist and was assisting her with obtaining new sponsors. Strickland referred to Wilson as the best female cyclist in the United States and possibly the world. When Strickland described Armstrong, he referred to her as a participant at bicycle races while he is a racer. Strickland stated he told Armstrong in the past she does not need to ride with him because she holds him back. Strickland advised Armstrong normally feels as though he's grumpy while training because he has to wait on Armstrong due to her not being able to ride at a professional level. Okay, here's my thing on that. Why are you with this? I mean, just this alone. I mean, I think they're putting this in there because it's like, why are you with her? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just, again, you know, and I'm making commentary in their relationship or whatever. I mean, I get it. It's, you know, but this doesn't make sense. He's speaking so highly of her. It's like, I guess my question here is, why is he not with Wilson? Like, what is making him say, well, I'll just be with her? You know what I'm saying? Maybe he was threatened by her. By Wilson. Like, she was like, oh, she's the best. He couldn't deal with that. He wanted someone that he considered just a participant. Like, he needed that. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, let's keep going. Detective Spittler asked Strickland about the vehicles in the driveway and who owns them. Strickland advised that he owns the BMW motorcycle and he owns a Mercedes. He advised the other vehicle, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, belongs to Armstrong. Strickland advised that he does not drive the Jeep and only Armstrong drives it. Strickland admitted to purchasing 2 firearms approximately between December 21st or 2021 and January 2022. One for himself and one for Armstrong. Strickland advised he purchased a Springfield Armory handgun for himself and a Sig Sauer handgun for Armstrong. Strickland told Detective Spittler Strickland told Detective Spittler Armstrong does not know where Wilson was staying and has never been in the friend's residence before. Strickland advised he was unaware Armstrong knew anyone in the area where the murder occurred. While Detective Spittler was conducting the interview with Strickland, Detective Ayers, along with members of the APD TAC Intel Unit, executed residential search warrant, which was issued by the Austin Travis Court. During that, they located 2 firearms in the residence described by Strickland, and it goes on to identify these firearms. Now, it was discovered by the officers of the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force that Armstrong had an outstanding Class B warrant for her arrest. The Lone Star Fugitive Task Force located and apprehended Armstrong and was transported to the Austin Police Department Homicide Unit, where Detective Katie Connor interviewed her. During the interview, it was relayed to Detective Connor that the Class B warrant was not valid and she would be free to leave. Detective Connor advised Armstrong of the change and further advised her that she was free to leave and the doors open. Armstrong was asked if she had heard what happened in the past 24 hours. Armstrong began to nod her head and stated Strickland walked into the house and said one of the women in the cycling community had passed away. Armstrong was very still and did not move at all as they spoke. When confronted on how Strickland was talking to this girl, and Armstrong's name came up during the investigation, she continued to stay quiet and completely still. When Armstrong was confronted with video evidence of her vehicle, she had no explanation as to why it was in the area and did not make any denials surrounding the statements presented to her. I guess pause for a second. I mean, what can you say, right? I mean, they're sitting here showing you that your car is at the murder scene, right? Like, what do you say? Like, nothing, okay? There's nothing you can say. I'm shocked she didn't kind of try and come up with something, right? But she was probably in complete shock. Like, ooh, you know, that's the only reason she was quiet. Detective Connor then confronted her on how Strickland went out with Wilson and that Armstrong was upset about that. Armstrong then turned her head and rolled her eyes in an angry manner. Armstrong then stated, I'm certain as to even what you mean or what he said, because I didn't have any idea that he saw or even went out with this girl as of recently. When confronted about how Armstrong's vehicle was seen next to the friend's residence and how Strickland was saying certain things, Detective Connor explained she wanted her help to explain what actually happened and to help provide a logical explanation about why her vehicle was in the area. Detective Connor then stated, maybe you're upset and just in the area. Armstrong then began to nod in agreement. Detective Connor then confronted Armstrong on how seeing her vehicle in the area, coupled with the statements made by Strickland, made things not look too good. Armstrong then again nodded her head up and down as if in agreement. Armstrong again made no effort to deny what was being said and still provided no explanation as to why her vehicle would be there. Armstrong continued to remain very still and guarded as she spoke with Detective Connor. Armstrong then requested to leave, so the interview was ended. Now, on May 13th, Detective Spiller contacted Wilson's friend, who was fully identified in the APD report and referred to by the pseudonym Jane, provided information on the conditions she would remain anonymous to prevent being targeted by Armstrong. Jane advised Wilson and Strickland have had multiple romantic relationships together and described it as an on-again, off-again relationship. Jane stated Wilson and Strickland's romantic relationship started during Wilson's first trip to Austin, Texas in the fall of 2021. Jane advised Armstrong discovered Wilson's phone number and contacted Wilson several times, causing Wilson to block Armstrong's phone number. Jane stated Wilson told her within the past 2 months, Armstrong began following Wilson on Instagram. Jane advised the last time Armstrong called Wilson, she told Wilson she was with Strickland and Wilson needed to stay away from him. Okay, so now here's where more of the story, the real thing's coming out, right? We're getting all the information from here because now what's coming out is this is like an on-again, off-again type thing. This has been going on. Again, we're getting these Sherry. I cannot think of her last name, but I know her name's Sherry. Same type thing going on, but just fast forward to where we have this kind of technology, right? So anyways, let's keep going. So on May 14, 2022, an anonymous caller contacted the Austin Police Department to provide information regarding this incident. The caller refused to be identified, but advised she was with Armstrong in January of 2022. The caller advised Armstrong had just discovered Strickland was having a romantic relationship with Wilson, even though Armstrong and Strickland were still dating. The caller advised Armstrong became furious and was shaking in anger. Armstrong told the caller Armstrong was so angry, Armstrong wanted to kill Wilson. Armstrong then proceeded to tell the caller Armstrong had either recently purchased a firearm or was going to. An initial search of Wilson's phone showed text messages regarding an event Wilson saw Strickland and Armstrong. The following is a message Wilson sent to Strickland while at the event in January. Hey, so I would like to talk to you at some point. I had originally texted you on Friday, but it appears my texts aren't going through again. This weekend was strange for me and I just wanted to know what's going on. If you just want to be friends, seems to be the case, and that's cool, but I'd like to talk about it because honestly my mind has been going circles and I don't know what to think. Strickland replied the following next day. Hey Mo, I feel very shitty for putting you in a position where you don't feel comfortable. Caitlin came along the go to a meeting about the Sprinter Spartan Hotel project. In hindsight, this was not a good idea. Based off of this conversation, Wilson appeared under the impression she was still in a romantic relationship with Strickland, even though he was currently dating Armstrong. So, pause for a second. Isn't that always the case? I mean, you see this whole thing going on, right? And this is what I'm talking about, where I just feel like probably what was going on here is this dude is kind of playing both women at the same time and like telling this one what she wants to hear and this one what she wants to hear. And it sounds like, and I keep, now I have adopted the name Sherry in this. So Caitlyn Armstrong, I have probably called her Sherry because she reminds me so much of that person now. But the Caitlyn Armstrong person in this case here, that's where I'm just like, you know, she's so similar to that case, it boggles my mind. But also the fact that she has this guy who clearly, I mean, just from the little bit of evidence we've seen, he's talking down about her, like she's just like, almost like he needs a personal fan club, like at the events that they do, or the races or whatever. And so then he's also talking to her over here. Now also it sounds like he likes that attention, because like when he's like, I shouldn't have brought her along. If you're bringing her along to this scenario that they're both going to be at, like what would you think was going to happen? You know what I'm saying? But some people like that attention, right? Now again, was I there to see this? No. Was I all up in their business to know exactly how it went down? No. So there's that. I mean, that's just me reading this and offering my opinion, so there's that. Anyways, let's keep going. During Strickland's interview, he advised he purchased a firearm for Armstrong around this time. Based off of the corroborating information discovered throughout this investigation, it would be reasonable to believe the anonymous caller is a credible witness. On May 15, 2022, Detective Spittler was canvassing the neighborhood where the murder occurred in an attempt to locate video surveillance. While searching, Detective Spittler was approached by David Harris. Harris is the property owner where the friend resides and rents the apartment above his detached garage to the friend. Harris advised on May 11, 2022, between 8:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. that he walked into his garage and partially raised the garage door. Harris advised after doing so, he heard what he described as someone running down the stairs that led to the friend's front door. Harris advised he believed he observed a bicycle travel southbound through the alleyway from the friend's apartment. Throughout this investigation, detectives assigned to the APD Homicide Unit, APD Aggravated Assault Unit, and officers assigned to the APD TAC Intel Unit have collected various surveillance footage corroborating statements made by Strickland and showing Armstrong's vehicle in the area of the murder. And then it goes into a timeline of it. And I'm just going to put this timeline up there for a moment for us to kind of look at here, and then we'll move on here. Now, the next paragraph is just going over, it's from May 17th, where they're basically saying that the Sig Sauer, I'm probably saying that wrong, that belonged to Armstrong, which was recovered from Strickland's residence, it was used, this was like run through their testing and whatnot, and that the potential for that same firearm was involved is significant. So, there's that. Now let's just go over this last statement here, this last paragraph I should say. Strickland's statements have been corroborated throughout video surveillance and physical evidence. Strickland has cooperated with the investigation and has voluntarily provided statements to homicide detectives. Armstrong is the only person who resides with Strickland at the residence and has access to the Sig Sauer P365. Video surveillance shows Strickland leaving the area after dropping off Wilson and shows Armstrong's vehicle driving to Cash's residence where Wilson was staying. Armstrong has made prior statements expressing a desire to kill Wilson. Strickland advised Detective Spittler has not spoken with Armstrong since May 13, 2022. Per anonymous tips reported to the APD Homicide Unit, Armstrong has deleted her social media accounts and has not been seen or heard from since this time either. Detective Spittler was able to view Armstrong's Instagram account the day after the murder, May 12, 2022, but after searching through open source records, found it has now been deleted. So as you see this tale that is told through direct people involved with this, right? It does not paint a good picture. Now, of course, no one has been, gone through courts and all this kind of stuff. All this is alleged. All this is my opinion, right? So, like I said, I don't know these people. This is just my commentary that I'm offering here. But it just seems kind of grimy, and it just seems like things that we have seen happen before in these cases and whatnot. Now, another thing that I want to do is go over some of the statements that have been made since all this came out. So Colin did come out, he released a statement. I'm just going to put them on the screen and I'm going to read over them, and we're going to talk about that in relation to how these play out against what we just read and went over. Okay, so from Colin Strickland, I am reeling from grieving Mo Wilson's death and from the facts that have emerged during the investigation. I cannot begin to imagine the pain felt by Mo's family and her close friends. There's no way to adequately express the regret and torture I feel about my proximity to this horrible crime. I am sorry, and I simply cannot make sense of this unfathomable tragedy. Although it will still be a matter of small consolation to anyone else who cared for Mo, I want you to know that I have cooperated fully with investigators ever since I learned the terrible news, and I will continue to do so until some form of justice is served. As a point of clarification to facts previously reported, Mariah Wilson and I had a brief romantic relationship from late October, early November 2021 that spanned a week or so while Wilson was visiting from Austin. At the time, she and I both recently ended relationships. She returned to her home in California, and about a month later, Caitlyn Armstrong and I reconciled and resumed our relationship. Since then, I often saw Mo at cycling events and always in public settings. We both competed in Bentonville, Arizona, Stillwater, and Monterey, California. We also met for a 4-hour training ride in Santa Cruz after the See Other Classic in Monterey. After our brief relationship in October 2021, we were not in a romantic relationship, only a platonic and professional one. It was not my intention to pursue an auxiliary romantic relationship that would mislead anyone. Mariah and I were both leaders in this lonely niche sport of cycling, and I admire her greatly and consider her a close friend. I am deeply grieving her loss. Now, let me just say this. My condolences go out to her family, her, obviously, everybody who loved and cared for her. This seems completely different than what we just heard come out of his mouth according to that document. Okay? Like, this is completely different. Like, I mean, he went swimming with her. This, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they were in public, but he was lying about getting together with her. You know what I'm saying? So this is where I'm like, this is not matching up. But here's the other thing. She's not here to say any differently. So, you know, again, I'm not sitting here trying to place blame or any of that. It's just something doesn't feel right about this. I'm not trying to say, oh, he had something directly to do, like, none of that, right? You know, if you want my personal opinion, which doesn't matter, I mean, I think obviously we know who literally pulled the trigger on this one, right? And I think it's literally that. I think this is a love triangle. I think oftentimes in love triangles, one person is manipulating the triangle, right, and pulling strings and doing that and getting emotional reactions and doing this kind of thing, and I'll just leave that at that. So we're going to be following this one. We're going to see what happens because I think more information will come out about this. Obviously, someone who pulled a stunt like this and then it goes on a 43-day international manhunt. I mean, come on. I mean, this is crazy, right? She was a yoga teacher, for God's sakes. So there's that. Again, I think it's a tragic loss. I hate that any of these people came into contact with each other because somebody lost their life over it, and that's really sad. And clearly she had a lot to offer the world, and she already offered and gave a lot to the world. And if there's any kind of silver lining, this fundraiser that her family and friends are offering will reach out to people and keep her name alive, because I think that her name is something that needs to keep going, you know what I'm saying, and the memory thereof, and she needs to continue to touch lives. So my heart goes out to everyone involved that knows her and has lost her directly, you know, having her in their life. So hopefully justice will be swift and harsh. And so that's it. We will stay tuned on the old sofa. I do appreciate everyone for being here. Again, thank you very much for making the channel possible. Thank you very much for keeping all of these victims' stories and their voices who were stolen all too soon from this earth going. And that's it. Until we meet with Mr. Roscoe and that damn sofa back there, I'll see y'all soon.